Hey YouTube, what is up? Well, we just got a ban list and I think it's finally time to discuss it. A lot of people have been very hyped and have been wanting a ban list for a very long time, and this ban list probably isn't what most people expected it to be, and I think as we go on we are going to separate farther and farther from the OCG list. Originally we used to have the same ban list, which kind of made sense since we play the same card game, but now as time progresses it seems like our ban list is starting to diverge to a greater extent than it has in the past. I think we can't go under the assumption that we're going to have a similar ban list from this point out. It just seems to make sense. With that being said, I think you've seen everybody's hype reaction to the ban list, so I thought this video should be a little different than that, and I want to discuss how the meta is going to change into the future from this point on. I think there's no question in that the three best decks before this ban list were Pure Zoo, True Draco Zoo, and then just True Draco in general, Dino making a splash here and there, and for some fucking reason Cosmo. But other than that, I feel like those three decks, and then including Dino, were probably the best decks we had, and with this current ban list, I really don't think any pure version of either deck stands a chance. Now let me explain this. With the fact that Zodiac lost Trident, that hurt, but what actually hurt the deck a whole hell of a lot more is Broad Bull, because Broad Bull is what allowed them to basically become a link engine. There is no other way to get a Zodiac to graveyard unless you normal summon a fucking rat and dump Ram, because you cannot detach for search anymore, so you cannot special summon from the graveyard with Chakanine, making most Zodiac plays dead until your second turn when you already have a Zodiac in the graveyard, and hopefully you draw another one because now you can't search any of them. So I really think the most painful hit that Zodiacs got was having Rat limited to 1, because it affects them even more now that they have Broad Bull being banned. I think that that makes it so that Zodiac might be an engine just because of Mirage, but other than that I really don't think there's going to be much that they're going to do. I don't think Pure Zoo is going to be a thing anymore. When Japan lost Trident, they still had Broad Bull, and that allowed them to basically become a trap stun heavy deck, and I don't think that's going to happen here in the TCG. I think what's going to happen is Zodiac is going to become an engine, or it's going to die out completely. True Draco is in a bit of a middle ground. It's actually a little weird. They kind of like fell in between what happened in the OCG and what most people expected. I know a lot of people expected them to get hit, and they definitely did. But what happened was every card that we didn't expect to get hit got hit, and we still kept the cards that everybody expected to be banned or limited. We still have 3 Diagram, and we still have 3 Masterpiece. What's limited though is their search power, their draw power, their revivability. Basically, if you play pure True Draco, your long game is completely gone, and now you have to draw a lot better to actually sustain your plays. I think what's going to happen is True Draco is once again, like I said with Zodiac, not going to be a pure deck anymore. I think it's going to switch to being an engine. That just seems to make the most sense. I don't know how well True Draco invoked spellbooks will work, but I assume that's the first build people are going to try with 3 Masterpiece. I think people are probably going to use Oasis of Dragon Souls, or whatever is it, Waterfall of Dragon Souls. My bad, I said the wrong card. I think there might be more play of that card for recyclability because you get to draw cards out of your deck. So I think that card might come into play a little more, which was a super rare from the same set as I'm pretty sure Masterpiece came out in. I'm actually kind of excited to see what people are going to build now that we have Diagram at 3 and Masterpiece at 3, but pretty much most other Draco cards are at 1 or banned, so I'm very interested to see the combo decks. We're pretty much going to see what hodgepodge things someone can patch together that's going to top a YCS or something like that. I have a lot of interest in what's going to happen to those basically 6 cards, like 3 Masterpiece, 3 Diagram. I have a few ideas myself, and I'll talk about them a little later in the video, but first I want to talk about Dinos as well. This seemed like the most unwarranted hit, to be honest with you guys. I understand that Dinos was in Worlds and it performed exceedingly well, but when Blue Eyes, topped Worlds, it didn't get a ban list, it didn't get hit or anything like that. So it seems a little weird that Dinos actually got hit. Dinos weren't really doing all that much. It also seems weird that they're getting rid of True King Lithosagem and not the Searcher for it. It just seems really weird because like Diagram still pops in hand and that can trigger the babies, and they're getting Rescue Rabbit back, which is a little weird too. So I think we're gonna see Dino to a lesser extent. I think it might become a rogue deck. I don't think it has the capability to build the crazy boards, especially with the fact that it doesn't have Denglong anymore, which guaranteed them 2 negates if they were able to bring out Denglong in the first place. Their deck is no longer a tower defense kind of thing. It's more like a rank 4 Xyz freeze spam or like an OTK deck. It doesn't really do much other than that. It doesn't interrupt your plays as much as it could, as it did in the past. So Dinos, I think, fell into a weird place. It seems weird that they hit it this much. Like, Monarchs didn't even get fucking touched on the first ban list after they came out, but Dinos get smacked up on this one. It doesn't make any sense, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. So unfortunately, Dinos lost a lot, more so than I'd say True Dracos did, which is pretty fucking weird. They lost their literal key playmaker, being Denglong, so I don't think Dinos are going to do much. Rescue Rabbit 3, I don't really think is going to help them. I think it's going to demote them to Rogue, or maybe like tier 3, just some really, really low stuff, maybe a top here and there to locals, but other than that, I don't really think it's going to do too much anymore, unfortunately. And now that we talked about the top decks of the last meta, let's talk about what decks we can expect to see going forward from here and what the effects of this ban list will be. First off, I don't think that World Chalice can even be meta at this point. They weren't that great to begin with, and the fact that they lost their key recycler and basically the one card that enables their best play, which is Daigusto Emerald, is pretty fucking crazy. I really don't think that they can do anything anymore. It's funny because if you watched my last video where I talked with my friend Mike, we showed off the combo involving Daigusto Emerald shuffling back Shine Balls to be abused with Agent of Venus, and I actually mentioned that Emerald has to get hit one of these days because it just enables too much for too many decks. And it looks like I was right, because this card really just does enable too much recycling, and it allows you to get all of your plays back pretty much with any deck that can make it. So I understand why Emerald was hit, but because Emerald has been hit, mostly because of Zodiacs, I do think that now we are not going to see any World Chalice tops unless they get new support and better link monsters. For now, they're just a deck that draws and then does nothing and then has like 8 vanilla in hand. So all in all, I don't think that they're going to do almost anything, and I really think that they're just going to kind of fall back to like an anime deck if they actually show up in the show at some point. World Chalice is a good idea in that they showed off what link summoning can do and the amount of monsters you can bring out. The problem is they just don't do anything with those monsters, and now they lack the recursion that they desperately needed because they go through almost all their materials and resources turn 1. They kind of screw themselves. So now I don't think World Chalice is going to do almost anything. Next up is a True Draco variant in general. I think that that is going to probably be one of the stronger decks in the upcoming format. I don't have the forethought to predict the mix of decks that is going to abuse Masterpiece and Dragonic Diagram, but I do believe that in the future that deck will shine. I don't know what the deck is, but I'm saying it is a deck that utilizes Masterpiece as an engine or as a part of the deck in general. I'm not saying pure True Dracos, that's really not going to do anything. I think that for now, we're just going to see some hodgepodge engine, and that's probably going to become one of the better decks until we get some new support. The fact that you can still have Masterpiece at 3 and make it immune to anything means it's going to give a lot of decks a lot of problems, because you could just pick the 2 that are most relevant and then they have a tough time dealing with it. A deck that is going to do very well once we get the new support for it is definitely Spiral. Spiral is definitely tier 1 in the OCG, but in the OCG they had Masterpiece at 1, not at 3, and now I think they don't even have Masterpiece at all. I'm pretty sure it's banned in Japan, but when they had 1 Masterpiece, Spiral was able to out-resource them, out-grind them. Spirals is actually a very, very rough deck to go up against because they get to see the top cards of your deck and force you to brick turn after turn. The first time I played Spirals, I really thought it was just a joke and, you know, I'd be able to beat them really hard, but the Utopic Zexal lock that my friend got me under and the fact that he was able to make me brick for 5 turns straight was absolutely ridiculous. Spirals have a lot of potential, not just because of the way that they can bring out a lot of monsters, have a firewall dragon, and that kind of thing. I think their true potential lies in their ability to outgrind you and also cause you to brick and prevent you from accessing the resources you need to out their boards. They also have a lot of inherent protection, and I think Spiral is very strong because of that. And the last deck that I think is going to be meta relevant for this upcoming meta is Paleozoic. I think Paleozoic is going to do very well because we did not lose Demise at all. Demise is literally still at 3. Paleozoics are getting a new support card that allows them to open up their plays a lot more in the form of Miss Starboy. I think that's how it's pronounced. They can still go into Toad. Toad is still very, very strong, and the fact that they can, if they open the Toad combo or the Frog combo, whatever you want to call it, end with Miss Starboy and a Frog and maybe another rank 2 is pretty spicy. So I think that that deck has a lot of potential. The fact that they didn't lose any searchers and they just pretty much got stronger because everything else got weaker, is going to benefit them greatly. I think their one problem is probably going to be Masterpiece, because if you make Masterpiece trap and monster immune, there's no way they're going to be able to out that card unless they just summon a Kaiju on top of it. So they're going to have a lot of problems in general. But I think maybe 60 card Paleo, that grass, that kind of thing, any deck that can abuse those cards is going to do very well, and Paleo just happens to fit that build. And it seems like Paleo is pretty much just the perfect storm of draw and stun decks, and I think they're actually going to have a pretty good matchup against Spiral. If Spirals goes first, of course they're going to have a tough time. The fact that their traps when they are monsters on the field are unaffected by monster effects is very strong, which means Masterpiece is going to have a tough time interrupting them, which means that Firewall Dragon is going to have a tough time interrupting them. I really think the deck is going to have a pretty decent matchup against Spirals. I think True Draco is probably going to be the deck that is able to out Paleo just because trap and monster immune. Masterpiece is pretty much game. I'm actually interested to see how this meta is going to pan out, because a lot of stuff got hit and it's kind of forcing us down to play lower tier decks or things that haven't even been meta relevant for maybe the last format or two. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens with it. I think once we get the new set coming out soon, I think it's Circuit Break, we're gonna see the rise of Spiral. I don't think that Bullets or Bullets or Magical Musketeers, whatever it's called, is going to do much, to be honest with you. I think from this point forward, it's going to be a True Draco variant, a Spiral deck, and then Paleo. I don't think there's going to be anything else that's going to be that strong that's going to put too much pressure on the rest of the decks. I think those are going to be the best three. Of course, we're going to see some Rogue or anti-meta decks pop up here and there, but for the most part, those are the three I expect the most. And like I mentioned previously, I do have a spicy build I'm trying to make now that we know for sure Masterpiece is at 3 and we still have 3 diagrams, and basically you can't use any of the smaller monsters or the traps. I have a very spicy Monarch build I'm going to be trying out, because Monarchs do run a lot of continuous spells and traps. They also run a lot of very small monsters, and they do get additional tribute summons every turn. So I'm thinking of a spice build right now, so look out for that deck profile in the future. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you think the best 3 decks of the upcoming format are going to be. I'd really love to hear your opinion. If you have any comments on the decks that I made or reasons you think those decks are not going to be meta relevant, let me know in the comment section down below as well. Thank you guys again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click subscribe, because it's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.